Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rabbi Janice Patisha. Carol Ronder knew me before I was me. She and my mother were high school friends. They spent 2 years together at Ohio State, and as of April 27th, Carol was my mother's longest living friend. My grandparents were dear friends of Howard and Richard's grandparents. Quite often when my family came to Cleveland from Chicago, there was often a canasta game going on in the dining room and baking going on in the kitchen. I told Richard the other night that I felt that he and Howard were brothers to me and my sister. That's how close we always thought of them. As we proceed, you will hear psalms and meditations, words of mine, words of Howard's. But before that, some information that is pertinent for the next few days. First of all, Shiva. Shiva will be at Wiggins Place. Does everyone know where that is? 27070. However you all say numbers here in Cleveland. Cedar Road in Beechwood. Shiva will begin at 2 o'clock this afternoon until 5, and will begin again at 6 o'clock until 9. Please be respectful of that 1 hour break for the family. Shiva Minyan will begin at 7 p.m. this evening. Contributions in Carol's memory may be made to the Hospice of Western Reserve on Clare Avenue in Cleveland. If it's easier for you, they have a website, hospicewr.org. Each of you here today, and others who could not be here, had a binding and unique relationship with Carol. Whether you were her sons, part of her extended family, dear friends, or caregivers, you had a bond with Carol that death cannot sever. Her life now continues through the tenderness of memory. But we celebrate the gifts of her life, the joy that she shared, the happiness, the edge. Those are all now a precious remembrance, and for all of those things and so much more, we do give thanks. Two of the three Abrahamic religions look at the 23rd Psalm for comfort. The 23rd Psalm is unique in that it doesn't say, I will fear no evil because nothing will ever happen to me. I'll never feel sad. I will never have to endure any trials or travails. The 23rd Psalm says, when I am faced with difficulties, when my heart feels torn, when I feel that I'm at the end of my road, I won't have to experience it alone because I know my faith, my God, my community, my tradition will be with me. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Be'inot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanhaleni, nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'mahagle tzedek, Leman Shemo. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. There's a very interesting book in the Bible entitled Kohelet. The author is attributed to be King David. Again, there are great words of wisdom that are eternal in so much of our wisdom literature. In the book of Kohelet, there's a very short phrase that reads, "The eye never has its fill of seeing." Think about it. The eye never has its fill of seeing. We never see enough. We never do enough. We never love enough. We never embrace enough. We never care enough. We never give enough before the end of our time. I could spend hours and hours and hours, but I won't, talking about the depth of that and the meaning that that has for us today. Because of whatever was not completed in Carol's life, she chose to bring it to conclusion. And I know for so many of you, for myself, for her sons, for her family, that whenever parting came, it came too soon. It came too soon for all of us, not for Carol, but for all of us. We hope and pray for consolation for them, that your hearts know peace, that you feel the love and the warmth of everyone here in this room, and thousands of years of our Jewish tradition. Again, from the same book, the book of Kohelet, words that are so profound and so meaningful that composers have written music to it. We hum it in the car, those of us who are old enough to remember. They're words that have become ubiquitous in our civil society as well as religious. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and then a time to build up, a time to weep and again a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and then a time to gather, a time to embrace and a time to refrain and let go, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak. In the next few days and weeks, Richard and Howard will consider what will be hewn on Carol's tombstone. Of course, her name, probably words of affection, and the dates of her birth and the date of her death. In between the date of her birth and the date of her death will be etched one of the smallest grammatical marks in the English language, the dash. Out of everything that matters the most in a person's life is that dash, that small grammatical mark. For the dash represents all of the time that Carol Ronder spent on this earth. And those who love her know the worth, know the value of that dash. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the homes, the cash. What matters is how we live and love while we are living out that dash. Carol was born in Cleveland Heights in 1927, the only child of Emil and Frances Schlesinger. She attended Glenville High School and spent 2 years at Ohio State. One of the most important transitional times in her life was when her friend Molly fixed her up with a young man. When she met Sonny, their relationship as soulmates almost began immediately, and it deepened every day, every month, every year that they were together. In September 1948, they married, initially living with Sonny's parents. But soon new homes were being built in South Euclid, and one day Sonny came home with a surprise. I wish I could have seen Carol's face. "Honey, I bought a house." That soon became the birthplace of their two sons, Richard and Howard. with their family complete, and by the early 1960s, people were moving to new upscale suburbs. They were the first family to purchase the home on Shaker Crest Boulevard, soon to be followed by their friends, the Feldmans, who lived on the same block in South Euclid. It's no wonder that friends followed them. Carol was very social and increased her circle of friends regularly. Carol also loved to fix up their homes. Just the other day, Howard found an article from the Cleveland paper dated May 1963, in an article which spoke of Carol's decorating excellence. An attentive, adoring, intensively caring mother and wife, Carol had dinner on the table every night when Sonny came home from work. Carol was an authentic homemaker. Everything had its place, and everything better be in its place. I learned a lot of lessons from Carol, and I won't enumerate on them, but one. Still to this day, I wipe out the sink when I'm done washing my hands. On an occasion where my sister and I were staying with the Ronders, before we were all going out, the four of us, Howard, Richard, my sister, and I, were all in the bathroom together washing our hands. Carol walked by the door and said, "Remember to clean the bathroom and wash out the sink before you leave." I'm not sure if we all saluted, but I think that's how we felt. Between Carol's passion of a homemaker, daughter, wife, and mother, there was canasta, bowling, mahjong, and sunbathing during family trips to Cedar Point and to Florida. Carol volunteered for many years at Menorah Park and worked for a jeweler, which led to her owning her own jewelry business. I loved when Carol and Sonny would come to New York on buying trips. Sometimes they would stay with me, oftentimes with Howard. Carol's dash. Her dash also reflects her fierce loyalty to Sonny, to her family, and to her friends. If Carol was in your life, then she was in your life for life, and we now know, and beyond. She understood that we should not waste any time since we don't know how much time we have. She was a woman who gave to others, who understood the importance of showing up. Just one example is how devoted she was to Aunt Lil once Bob died. She taught her sons to speak up, to voice their opinions. The truth is, the elephant in the room, as loving and as caring as Carol was, you're all going to agree, she was equally tough and opinionated. You all agreed with me. She was a strong woman. Setting rules she expected everyone to follow. But with Carol, you could argue with her, you could even disagree with her, but you would stay in a loving relationship with her. In my opinion, Carol's life's views were transformed once again with the births of her grandchildren. When Jennifer was born, she flew to Michigan to be with Richard and Chris. When Aaron was born, she arrived in Philadelphia soon thereafter. When Matthew was born in Arizona, Carol and Sonny were actually vacationing with my parents. As soon as she could, she was with Howard and Tom for the birth of her third grandchild. She always had time and love for her grandchildren and her blessed two great-grandchildren. I think one of the best things about selling the house in Beechwood was Carol had the opportunity to decorate a brand new apartment. And the benefit for Sonny was he no longer had home repairs and those responsibilities. But soon thereafter, Carol was tested with the death of her beloved Sonny in 2003. Her fierce love and commitment to Sonny made his death all the more difficult, but with the hope and help of her sons and her friends and family, somehow Carol endured. And she was tested again with the infections in her feet. So much pain, so many doctors, so much time in and out of hospitals and rehab. We all know that it was her tenacity and her forbearance which saw her through. Years ago, a first responder told me a phrase that I often use. We are not here on this earth to see through one another, but to see one another through. And I think for decades and decades, Carol was one of those people that helped see us through and never saw through any of us. When she knew that the end was in sight, again she lived her way, which brought her peace. It matters not how much we own, the cars, the homes, or the cash. What matters is how we live and love while we are living out the dash. Carol Ronder, the woman who knew how we should lead our lives better than we did. Carol Ronder, the loyal, loving, dedicated daughter, wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and friend, will truly be missed. One of the last times I saw her, I had an opportunity, as I know many of you did, to have very deep, heartfelt conversations with her. And she looked at me at one point and she said, I am so blessed to have had such a wonderful husband, a wonderful family, wonderful sons, and wonderful friends. And she meant that from the depths of her heart. And what she did with, I'm sure most of you, in the last months of her life, she cried because she meant what she said. Our consolation now is that we know Carol is in peace. Carol is survived by her sons and their families, Richard, Christina, Jennifer, Aaron, and Evelyn and Rosalie, and Howard, Tom, and Matthew, and each of you who are here today. It is now my honor to invite Tom to the pulpit to share, Howard's beautifully written words.
It's an honor to be here and to speak Howard's words. I just want to say that I knew Carol for 35 years, longer than my own mother, and in so many ways, she was my mother. Howard's words. They called her Queen. I'm thinking it's a name Sonny started about 60 years ago. And oh, how she ruled. Ever the matriarch, never hesitant to speak her mind, bitchy at times, but gracious, caring and ultimately giving. And through all her years, through healthy times and times of so much illness, only then did she truly begin to know her own strength. With a voice that roared with opinions, directions, personal obsessions, washing the sink out. Her values showed strength and compassion, being the listener to so many. She was a trusted friend, devoted daughter, wife, and mother. There was always a loyal following. She was known for her impeccable taste as a jewelry maker, decorator, and more, and was the go-to for fashion advice for just about anything for her friends. Ever the social one, though she was not always comfortable in her times of solitude. That amazing spirit, independence, strong character, and devotion to family first. Family first will always guide me and be part of all the lives she touched. I believe I knew her at both some of her strongest and most vulnerable times. Yes, she could be argumentative, but I could also speak my mind, challenge her, while still comforting her. And most importantly, both of us allowed the other to be heard. The last decade of her life, we grew closer than I'd ever imagined, and I learned much about being a survivor. For Mom, myself, and my entire family, I want to express the deepest gratitude to the sisters and daughters who are so valuable and have always been there for us. Karen, Minda, where are you? And Linda. Lost my place. and to her closest remaining friends who stood by her till the end. Thanks to Sarah Jackson, to Jeanette, the teams at UH, Wiggins Place, Home Instead, and Hospice of the Western Reserve that supported Mom were incredible, and I will be forever grateful. And a special thank you to Linda Tate, who was right by her side those last few months. I know and honor their special bond. I take the best of her with me into the rest of my life and see the lessons of her choices as benchmark for future decisions. I am so glad that she can finally be at peace.
It's not easy to speak someone else's words when you know they're your words as well. Thank you. My words to Richard and Howard and everyone else here. Hold on and let go. Seemingly contradictory counsel, but one does not negate the other. The two are complementary. Hold on. Death is not the final word. Death is not oblivion. Hold on in Kaddish, in Yortzeit, and in Yisker. No gesture, no kindness, no hand-holding, ever evaporates. Every kindness, every embrace, they all have their afterlife in our minds, in our hearts, and in our hands. Hold on. Do not enslave memory that sells the future to the past, nor recollection that makes us passive, listless, or resigned, but to memory that releases us for new life. We thank you, O God of love and life, for the resurrecting gift of memory which endows your children, fashioned in your image, with the godlike sovereign power to give immortality through love. Blessed are you, O God, who enables your children to remember. If you are capable, please rise. El male rachamim, shochen b'maromim, hamitzei menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashechina, im kedoshim utahorim, Kezohar harakia mazhirim et nishmat Carol Ronder shehalcha la'olama Ba'al harachamim yastireha b'seter kenefav la'olamim Vayitzror b'tzror hachayim et nishmotah Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. O compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Carol Ronder, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And together we say, Carol, may your soul always be blessed, be guarded, and be protected. Ya'er Adonai panav v'yichunecha. May the light that illuminated the pathway upon which millions and millions of souls traveled before you, may that same divine light illuminate the pathway upon which your soul now travels. V'yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasemecha shalom. May each of you and your extended families, those who are not here today, may each of you find peace in your house. Again, enjoy a beautiful sunset. Enjoy a beautiful piece of jewelry while thinking, Mom would have this. She would want this. She would have designed this. When you choose your clothing or the next wallpaper,